It started with a beep. Not the kind of beep that signifies anything important. Not the kind of beep that's a warning, or a momentous event, or even the kind that makes you sit up and pay attention. It was more like the beep that happens when you try to microwave a frozen burrito on high for 2 minutes and accidentally press cancel halfway through. The beep of disappointment. Luo Yen was, by all accounts, a normal 17-year-old. He had a normal family, normal friends, and a normal obsession with space. While other kids his age were texting each other memes or obsessing over the newest pop idol, Luo Yen spent his time watching grainy YouTube documentaries about extraterrestrial life, everything from the rational to the downright bizarre. He had long since stopped believing in the extraterrestrial, tabloid stories, but something about the unknown, the idea of life out there somewhere, kept him awake at night. It was comforting to think that humans were not the only creatures in the vast, black void. He'd even built himself a makeshift radio telescope. It wasn't much, just a broken satellite dish he'd scavenged from an old electronics store, a tangle of wires, and some spare components he had borrowed from his dad's abandoned hobby kit. The contraption looked like a high school science project that had gone terribly wrong. But it worked, kind of. It certainly picked up something. Just nothing useful. But the beep that came from it that night? That was different. Luo Yen was lying on his bed, scrolling through his phone with one hand and holding his half-eaten ramen bowl with the other, when the beep cut through the noise of his room. A quick, sharp sound, like a chirp. Then silence. He sat up, ramen sloshing. He had definitely heard something, he muttered, squinting at the screen of his cheap radio interface. It was blinking green, but nothing else. Had he finally caught something real? A distant radio wave? An encrypted signal from another galaxy? Or was it just a glitch? He hit the button to refresh the signal, almost expecting the same dull hum he'd heard for months. But this time, the screen flickered, and a line of text appeared in Mandarin. Not a weird alien language. Not anything that would have come from some galactic probe. Just plain, clear Mandarin. Luo Yen, you have been chosen. We, the Vrar, are calling you. Be ready for what's coming next. Luo Yen froze. He blinked a few times, his mouth slightly agape. He looked around his room, half expecting one of his friends to jump out from behind the door with a camera, laughing. But there was no one. No prank. No joke. Okay, he muttered, half laughing, half perplexed. That's new. It was probably just a fluke, right? Some computer-generated nonsense. But then, the screen flickered again, and the message reappeared. And this time, it came with a strange, high-pitched tone, almost like a voice that was oddly familiar. He leaned closer to the screen. The words shimmered, "Come with us. The future of humanity depends on you." Luo Yen laughed out loud. Yeah, right, he said to no one in particular. He didn't have time for this kind of thing. He was just trying to finish his history paper on the Tang dynasty and get through the weekend without his mom grilling him about his future, but just as he was about to turn off the machine and dismiss it as another weird glitch, something happened. The ceiling above him groaned. The air turned cold. The room vibrated. Luo Yan's stomach flipped. For a split second, he thought he might be having a seizure. But the feeling quickly subsided. The vibrations grew stronger, a low hum that seemed to shake the walls of his room, before the light above flickered. Then, pop, the window slid open, and a flash of light filled the room, blinding him. Whoa, he yelped, blinking rapidly. When his eyes adjusted, he saw something that defied explanation. Standing in the middle of his bedroom, perfectly at ease, like this was the most normal thing in the world, was a creature that wasn't like anything he'd seen in his sci-fi documentaries. It wasn't a gray alien with huge black eyes or a slimy, tentacled monster. No, this thing was strange, sure, but also oddly familiar. It had a humanoid shape, 2 arms, 2 legs, but its skin was shimmering and iridescent, like liquid metal. It had large, multifaceted eyes that reflected 1,000 different lights, and its face was vaguely insectoid. There was a sharp elegance about it, like an alien that had stepped out of a high-fashion catalog, not a monster movie. Its voice, when it spoke, was smooth and fluent, perfectly human Mandarin. "Greetings, Luo Yen," it said, its voice laced with a slight, almost imperceptible accent. "I am Azir of the Vrar. We have waited for you." Luo Yen stood frozen, ramen forgotten, mouth hanging open like a goldfish. "Wait, what? Are you real?" Azir raised a thin, crystalline hand and gestured around the room. "I assure you, I am very real. As real as your destiny, Luo Yen." Luo Yen blinked again. Wait. Are you telling me you're an alien?" "Yes," Azir interrupted with a slight tilt of its head. "And you, Luo Yen, are about to begin a journey that will change the fate of your entire species." Luo Yen stared at the being for a moment longer, then turned his head slowly, as if to check that no one was standing behind him, holding a camera. Okay. This is some kind of prank, right?" he said nervously, trying to laugh it off. "Is this a viral thing? One of those weird social media campaigns? Or a stunt for that new sci-fi show? Come on, who are you really?" The alien stared at him, a flicker of confusion crossing its strange features. "This is not a joke, Luo Yen. I come with an urgent message." "Yeah," Luo Yen replied sarcastically, looking up at the ceiling, "I can tell. Very urgent. I'm supposed to, what, save humanity? How exactly?" Azir tilted its head, a strange, almost imperceptible smile crossing its insectoid face. "You are more important than you realize. Humanity's survival depends on you. I have come to offer you the chance to transcend your limitations. Come with me, and I will show you the way." Luo Yen shook his head, the absurdity of the situation slowly dawning on him. Okay, buddy. You've got the wrong guy. I'm just a high schooler who can't even finish his homework on time. You want the smart, rich kid from the other school, go knock on his door." Azir didn't budge. It simply took one step forward, its long limbs moving with a fluid grace, and extended a hand. "No, Luo Yen. You are the one we need. And you will soon understand why." Luo Yen opened his mouth to argue, but the words caught in his throat. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even confusion. It was just a feeling, deep down, that whatever was happening right now, it was inevitable. That a part of him, one that he would have mocked just hours ago, knew that this was real and there was no escaping it. Luo Yen felt a strange pull inside his chest, like some unseen force was drawing him toward the alien. He shook his head again, trying to fight the bizarre sensation. This couldn't be happening. Aliens weren't real, not like this. He'd seen the documentaries, read the conspiracy theories. He knew the kinds of things people said when they thought they'd been chosen by extraterrestrials. This was just some elaborate prank, right? Maybe he'd been hallucinating. Yeah, that had to be it, but Azir's glowing eyes locked onto his, and there was something in them, a quiet intensity, an ancient wisdom, that made Luo Yen stop doubting. The room seemed to pulse with energy, as if the very air was charged with electricity. "No, this is real," Azir said, his voice calm, almost soothing. "You were always meant to be here, Luo Yen. It is not by accident that you found us." Luo Yen swallowed hard. "But, what does this even mean? I'm just some kid with a broken radio telescope. I don't know anything about saving the world or transcending anything. I barely even passed biology last semester." Azir gave a soft, unsettling laugh. It was a sound that didn't belong in the human world, like a bird with too many voices, but it was strangely melodic. "You will learn, and you will grow," Azir said. "But first, you must come with me." Luo Yen shook his head in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me. I mean, seriously? I'm supposed to just trust you? You're an alien. You want me to, what? Just hop on your spaceship and go wherever the hell you came from?" Azir's face remained serene, his alien features unreadable, yet there was an undeniable patience in his gaze. He extended his hand again, this time with more urgency. "This is not a request, Luo Yen. It is your destiny. Humanity's future hangs on this moment. Come with me, and you will understand." Luo Yen stood there, rooted to the spot, his mind racing in 1,000 directions at once. Part of him, most of him, wanted to run. He wanted to scream that this wasn't happening, that it was all just some prank or a wild dream. But his feet didn't move. Instead, they took a step forward. "Are you sure this is real?" he asked, almost pleading, as though he needed to hear it again, to somehow make it less impossible. Azir nodded solemnly. "Yes. And you will not regret it." Luo Yen hesitated. The words humanity's future echoed in his mind, but they didn't make any sense. What was he supposed to do with that? He wasn't a hero. He didn't have any special powers. All he had was a dream of something beyond the stars, and now it seemed those stars had come crashing into his world. He glanced at the mess of his room, the textbook scattered across the floor, his dirty laundry piling up on the chair, the ramen bowl still half filled on the nightstand. Nothing about this made sense. Everything he knew seemed to be turned upside down, but for some reason, his legs moved again. Slowly, cautiously, he approached Azir. "Where are we going?" Luo Yen asked, his voice cracking. "Somewhere far," Azir replied simply, his voice taking on a deeper tone. "Somewhere you'll never go back from." The alien's hand hovered in front of him, and Luo Yen, without fully understanding why, reached out and touched it. The moment his skin made contact with the creature's, a shock of energy coursed through him, jarring his senses. It wasn't painful, exactly. It was more like the sensation of being plugged into something, a hum that vibrated in his bones and made his hair stand on end. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the sensation stopped. Luo Yen gasped for air, pulling his hand back as if he'd been burned, but there was no mark, no damage. He looked at Azir, his pulse pounding in his ears. "Okay, now I'm really freaking out," Luo Yen said, stepping back, his heart racing. "What the hell just happened?" Azir didn't flinch. Instead, the alien gave him a reassuring nod. "That was the first step. The transition has begun, Luo Yen. You are no longer the person you were when I arrived. You have just made the choice to become something greater. I didn't ask for this." Luo Yen shot back, still shaken, but a tiny spark of something else, a glimmer of curiosity, began to flicker in his chest. He was terrified, but something in him had also shifted. He was no longer sure if he could just walk away. Maybe he did want to know. Maybe he had been waiting for something like this his entire life. Izir took a step back, his form blurring slightly as the room began to shimmer around them. The walls rippled like water, and the air seemed to grow thick with energy, charged with an electric hum. Then come, Izir said, the command in his voice soft but undeniable. And I will show you the truth. Suddenly, the world around Luo Yen vanished, replaced by a swirl of colors, bright flashes of purple and blue, interspersed with the dark void of space. His stomach flipped as the floor beneath him seemed to disappear. For a split second, he thought he was falling, but then he realized that the ground had simply ceased to exist. He looked around, disoriented. It wasn't a room anymore. It wasn't his house. It wasn't Earth. He was standing on something strange, an invisible platform, suspended in nothingness. His heart pounded in his chest as he tried to make sense of what was happening. Where are we? He managed to ask, his voice unsteady. Izir's voice was the only thing anchoring him to reality. We are outside of time. Outside of space. You are no longer bound by the limitations of your world. The space around him seemed to stretch on forever, a kaleidoscope of swirling colors that defied explanation. The fabric of reality itself appeared to be folding and twisting, as if they were in the center of a vast cosmic web, where the threads of existence were being woven in real time. Luo Yen blinked, trying to make sense of it. His mind was racing, trying to process everything. But no matter how hard he tried, it was like trying to catch smoke in his hands. This is what's beyond, Izir explained, gesturing toward the endless expanse. This is where the Vrar and other advanced civilizations dwell. We exist in a dimension that is not bound by time or space. Here, we are limitless. Luo Yen swallowed. His entire world, everything he had ever known, felt so small, so insignificant in comparison to what he was seeing. And I'm supposed to live here? To become one of you? Izir's multifaceted eyes glinted in the swirling light. No. You will not become one of us. You will be something new. A bridge between the humans you know and the future you will create. Luo Yan's pulse quickened. What does that even mean? It means, Izir said, his voice lowering, that your evolution is only just beginning. You will undergo a transformation, a process that will unlock your true potential. But it will not be easy. You will experience pain. You will question yourself. But in the end, you will be the key to saving your species. Luo Yen stared at the alien. He wanted to run, to scream, to escape. But he couldn't. There was something irresistible about Izir's words, something that drew him in despite every instinct in his body telling him to turn back. I don't know if I can do this, Luo Yen whispered, his voice trembling. You do not have a choice, Izir replied, his tone surprisingly gentle. The fate of humanity does not wait. The alien's words hung in the air, as heavy as gravity itself. And for the first time, Luo Yen realized something that chilled him to his bones. He wasn't being asked to join an alien race. He was being asked to lead humanity into a future they weren't even ready for, and he was terrified, but he didn't turn back. Because somewhere, deep down, Luo Yen knew that whatever came next was exactly what he had been waiting for. End of story.